It is now 5 o'clock, January 17, 2017, and I call to order the meeting of the City Council of the City of Victorville, and the City Council sitting is the Library Board of Trustees, Southern California Logistics Rail Authority, Southern California Logistics Airport Authority, successor agency to the Victorville Redevelopment Agency, the Victorville Joint Powers Financing Authority, the Victorville Water District, and the City's Housing Assets successor. May we have roll call, please?
Councilmember Gomez.
Present.
Councilmember Kennedy. Here. Councilmember Negretti.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Cox.
Here.
Mayor Garcia.
Here. This is the time and place for the general public to address the City Council on any item listed or not listed on the agenda. Per Government Code Section 54954.3, state law prohibits the council from addressing any issue not previously included on the agenda. The council may receive testimony and set the matter to a subsequent meeting. I don't see anyone in the audience that wants to address the council. Therefore, I will request declaration of closed session items by City Attorney.
Thank you, Mayor Garcia. We actually have 11 items listed, although 6 of them are somewhat related. Items A through D are on behalf of the City Council. Item A is real property negotiations pursuant to Government Code 54956.8. The negotiating parties and the property are set forth on the agenda. Items B and C are both pending litigation pursuant to Government Code 54956.9 D1. On behalf of the City Council, the litigation case names, and case numbers are set forth on the agenda. Those are also related to items G, H, I, and J on behalf of the Airport Authority, which is also pending litigation pursuant to Government Code 54956.9 D1. And again, the case names and the case numbers are set forth on the agenda. Item D is anticipated litigation pursuant to Government Code 54956.9 D2 and pursuant to Government Code 54956.9 E3. The facts and circumstances related to that litigation are set forth on the agenda. Item E is real property negotiations pursuant to Government Code 54956.8. This, along with item F, are on behalf of the Airport Authority. The real property and the negotiating parties are set forth on the agenda. Item F is also real property negotiations pursuant to Government Code 54956.8, and again, the negotiating parties and parcels are set forth on the agenda. And lastly, item K on behalf of the Victorville successor agency to the Victorville Redevelopment Agency is real property negotiations pursuant to Government Code 54956.8. And once more, the negotiating parties and the property is set forth on the agenda.
Thank you.
To the extent there is reportable action, we will report it either at the conclusion of the closed session or at the commencement of the regular session at 6 o'clock.
Thank you. We will recess to our closed session. We will return for our regular session that convenes.
Heard a click.
Testing, testing. Can you hear me now?
Thank you.
They're not working, I'm yelling. Today is January 17th, 2017, and it is now 6:06. And I call to order the meeting of the City Council of the City of Victorville. And the City Council seating is the Library Board of Trustees, Southern California Logistics Rail Authority, Southern California Logistics Airport Authority, successor agency to the Victorville Redevelopment Agency, the Victorville Joint Powers Financing Authority, the Victorville Water District, and the city as housing assets successor. May we have roll call, please?
Councilmember Gomez.
Good evening.
Councilmember Kennedy.
Here.
Councilmember Negretti.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Cox.
Here.
Mayor Garcia.
Here. May we have closed session announcements by our city attorney, please?
Thank you, Mayor Garcia. We had 11 items on the agenda this evening. However, 6 of those items were somewhat related. For the City Council, item A was real property negotiations pursuant to Government Code 54956.8. The real property and the parties negotiating is set forth on the agenda. Items B and C are actually all related to items G, H, I, and J, which is all pending litigation pursuant to Government Code 54956.9 D1, and the case names and case numbers are set forth on the agenda. Item D was anticipated litigation pursuant to Government Code 54956.9 D2, and the information related to that anticipated litigation is set forth on the agenda. Items E and F on behalf of the Airport Authority were real property negotiations pursuant to Government Code 54956.8, and again, the parties to the negotiations and the properties are set forth on the agenda. And lastly, item K was also real property negotiations on behalf of the successor agency to the Redevelopment Agency pursuant to Government Code 54956.8. The parties and the properties set forth on the agenda. At this time, there is no reportable action with respect to any of those items.
Thank you. Now we have the invocation will be delivered by Pastor Dane Davis of First Christian Church. And after that, we will have the Pledge of Allegiance, which will be led by Police Chief Sam Lucia. Please stand.
Thank you, Mayor Garcia. After teaching his followers the Lord's Prayer in Luke chapter 11, teaching them to honor his name and to come to him as Father, he said this: I say to you, ask and it will be given to you, seek and you shall find, knock and the door will be open to you. So to start tonight, we're going to do some asking, some seeking, and some knocking. Would you pray with me? We come to you, Heavenly Father, thanking you for the privilege of prayer. Thank you, Lord Jesus, for teaching us to come to you as Father, to come to you as our Creator, to come to you as Lord, asking for your mercy, Lord, asking for your guidance, asking for your wisdom. And I thank you, Lord, for the humility of this city council, wanting to continue this tradition, O Lord, that's carried on for many years in this city, to begin these meetings by seeking that guidance and wisdom that only you can give. Lord, there's many decisions to be made tonight, much discussion to take place, so we pray that you would be in this room guiding these proceedings. We thank you for our mayor. We thank you for each of these city council members. We thank you for our city manager, for our city attorney, and all of the employees of this great city of Victorville. Thank you, Lord, for bringing us to this place for such a time as this. Move and guide and direct according to your perfect will, and may we humbly follow your guidance. And it's in Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Face the American flag. Place your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, will you please present the agenda to the council and any revisions or additions, please?
Yes, Mayor Garcia. Persons who wish to address the council on a specific agenda item or any item that does not appear on the agenda are requested to complete one of the white speaker cards located in the council chambers lobby and give it to the city clerk prior to the meeting. The mayor will call upon each individual who has submitted a speaker card. Pursuant to Government Code Section 54954.3, state law prohibits the council from addressing any issue not previously included on the agenda. The council may receive testimony and set the matter to a subsequent meeting. Comments are to be limited to 3 minutes per speaker or less as deemed necessary by the mayor. Communications are to be addressed directly to the city council. Individual comments to staff or members of the audience are not permitted. Any individual or group who engages in disruptive conduct during the meeting will be removed from the chambers by order of the mayor. All documents to be considered for approval at this meeting are before the council, and there are 2 revisions for tonight's agenda. The first one is more of a correction on closed session item number A. The APN number is incorrect as it's listed on the agenda, and the record will be corrected to reflect the correct APN number, 3090-571-14. The other item is concerning item number D8. There is a memo that has been provided from Mayor Pro Tem Cox to the rest of the City Council in conjunction with that item, and those are the only revisions I have.
Thank you. This evening we have an appeal hearing. That's item A1. I'm sorry, I skipped over the special presentation. We have a special presentation by Police Chief Sam Lucia.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, members of the City Council, and staff. As you all know, that I've had the privilege of serving the city as your police chief for the last 4 years, but the time has come to move on to other jobs, and I've been transferred by the sheriff down to our headquarters division, where I'll be running the Employee Resources Division. And tonight I want to take a moment just to thank the council for the support you've given us over at the police department. We've got a lot done in the last 4 years, and it's because of your support that was able to be done. And I'd like to introduce Captain John Schuler, who will be your new police captain beginning Friday night at midnight.
Thanks. Sam, don't forget that's midnight Friday. So anyway, my name is John Schuler. I'm a captain with the Sheriff's Department currently. I live in the high desert with a wife and 2 kids. One of my sons has moved out, and the other one is going to move out soon. He just doesn't know it. I've lived here since 1991 in the desert. I started my career with the Sheriff's Department in 1988, and I've loved every day of it. In my 28-year career, I've had 12 different assignments. Some of my most recent management assignments have been criminal intelligence, communications, and most recently, I'm assigned to the High Desert Detention Center. When I got the call from the sheriff telling me he wanted me to come here to Victorville City, I was very pleased. I worked here in 2007 to 2009 as a sergeant. I worked patrol, I worked traffic, the MET team handling various duties in the city. So very excited to be here, and I'm sure it's going to be a smooth transition with the help of Captain Lucia. And Sam, I wish you the best of luck. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I don't know if this is the right time or not, but I'd like for us all to acknowledge 4 years of absolutely marvelous service by Sam Lucia.
Most definitely, we thank you very much for all the service and everything that you have provided, and you have always been so kind and understanding. Thank you. Okay, now I think I'm on the right track. We're on appeal hearings. And we have item A1. The appellant, First Assembly of God, an appeal of the Planning Commission's decision to approve case number PLN 16-00021 and associated case number PLN 15-00017. Madam Clerk, please read the recommendation.
The recommendation would be that at the close of the appeal hearing, the City Council consider the application submitted by the appellant and either deny the appeal, thereby affirming the decision of the Planning Commission to approve the site plan conditional use permits for fuel dispensing and beer, wine sales, and associated parcel map by adopting affirming resolution numbers 17-001, 17-002, 17-003, and 17-004, or grant the appeal and reverse the decision of the Planning Commission to approve the site plan conditional use permits for fuel dispensing and beer, wine sales, and associated parcel map by adopting reversing resolution numbers 17-001, 17-002, 17-003, and 17-004.
Thank you. At this time, I open the appeals hearing, and I do have some cards. I will call out the first one. John C. Martin, come up. And after him will be Steve Wild.
Good evening, City Council members, Mayor. Thank you for your time. I serve as the lead pastor at First Assembly of God Church and the superintendent of schools for Victor Valley Christian School. And I stand before you tonight as one who is concerned with the approval of a conditional use permit allowing the sale of alcoholic beverages in discussion on this particular appeal. The church, just so you know, on the corner of Nisqually and Balsam Road has been in existence for a number of decades now, and we service our community with 3,300 people as a part of our church on a Sunday morning attendance. About 7,000 people call our church their church home. We have Victor Valley Christian School and preschool. Preschool has been a vital part of the ministry of our church as well as the school itself. Victor Valley Christian School has approximately 360 students in enrollment this year. We have a youth group that we have on campus on Wednesday nights of 250 students, and we are concerned about the decision of the Planning Commission. And I'd like to read the California Code 23789. It's the Business and Professional Code of Conduct, and in sections A and B, it reads this way. It says, the department is specifically authorized to refuse the issuance other than the renewal or ownership transfer of any retail license for premises located within the immediate vicinity of churches and hospitals. And section B goes on to say that the department is specifically authorized to refuse the issuance other than renewal or ownership transfer of any retail license for premises located within a 600-foot radius of schools, public playgrounds, nonprofit youth facilities, including but not limited to facilities serving Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, Campfire Girls. This distance shall be measured pursuant to the rules of the department. As you may know, we are within 300 feet, half of that distance of the appeal that's in process here tonight. We also own property, as you may know, on the other side, on the east side of Balsam, that is directly adjacent to the property in consideration this evening. And we had the opportunity to put a gas station in ourselves. We chose not to do so because of some very specific issues that are in front of us. One of which has to do with loitering, which is known throughout, the United States that loitering takes place around gas stations, and so we're concerned about the loitering that happens. We're concerned about the safety of our students. And when California issues a code that says for businesses and for professions not having alcohol sale within 800 feet, we would ask for your consideration to uphold that.
600 or 800?
600 feet. 600 feet, yes, is what the code says. We're 300 feet away from that, within that realm. In addition to that, the front door of our church and our school is really facing eastbound. So when, as you can imagine, parents are dropping off their kids at school, we have a traffic circle that takes place every morning and every afternoon where these parents are dropping their kids off, students come in, those who are old enough to drive to school, they're doing the same kind of thing. So the front door and the greatest impact to us is eastbound. So we have a huge concern as to safety and what's happening around the issuance of alcohol. You may have heard from the possibility of granting this, that the sale of alcohol is a small portion of the overall business, and yet in the Planning Commission meeting, the statement or the question was specifically asked, would you continue to pursue this if you didn't have the alcohol license? And they said no. So obviously the sale of alcohol is very key with this. I'll go on to say that as a church and one that's been situated in the community in this location for obviously a number of years now, that we are not against the ongoing growth of the community. We want the community to grow. We understand that businesses need to thrive and for the community, for Victorville to continue to move forward. We also understand that our location is a unique one with now numbers of areas of properties that are available, and we certainly understand that businesses will be going in all the way around us. In fact, if you've driven by recently, you will see a sign that says future site of a Shell station on the southwest corner of Nisqually and Mariposa. The impact of that gas station is significantly less to us than the impact of the gas station that is in discussion tonight. And we, as a church, would take a stance of knowing that because of the on-ramp and off-ramp that's going on there and the need to supply gas stations in the area, we understand some of those needs, that we would hope that you would favor a limited number of gas stations that would go in the area. We know that particularly for this particular gas station and everything that it brings to it, next to the apartment complex and other neighbors, we have a huge concern as to safety, ongoing safety that's going on. We have had a number of things happen since the on-ramp and off-ramp have gone in. Stolen cars out of our parking lot, break-ins, other types of things. We have increased surveillance. We now have personnel on our premises 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to provide additional security and help to our building. So we're concerned about what's going to happen in this area, and would just make that appeal to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Steve Wild. And after him will be John Urbrot.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of the City Council. I'm representing the applicant in this case. I'll give you a brief overview of why this is not just an ordinary gas station. In fact, it's really an exciting new concept that incorporates true upscale neighborhood market with gasoline sales. The building on this property is going to be several times larger than you see from a typical convenience store. It'll be about 7,500 square feet. The store will feature such items as a Fat Burger Express, thrifty ice cream counter, buffalo wings, fresh deli sandwiches, and organic coffee bar. Typical grocery items such as fresh produce, will also be provided along with some table service. Our location is important because the market will serve the surrounding residential neighborhood that currently lacks such amenities. The proposed store would operate 24 hours a day, with alcohols limited to the hours between 6 a.m. and 2 a.m., which is required by state law. There will be no single sales of individual alcohol consumption, nor will there be any allowed on the premises. I note that the the police department has reviewed this application and is recommending approval of it. And consistent with that, we will be providing 360-degree video surveillance both inside the store and outside of the store. In terms of an economic impact to the community, we believe that the gasoline sales and the market sales will support the equivalent of more than 20 full-time positions and generate upwards of $25 million a year in taxable sales. This concept has already been implemented in several locations throughout Southern California, or is in the permitting stage. They include Chino, Palm Springs, Temecula, Hesperia, and Apple Valley. The staff notes that there is a need for a fuel dispensing facility in the immediate area due to the lack of a similar facility within 1 mile of this location. We understand that the City Council did recently approve a number of standards for regulating alcohol consumption, and this project meets all of those standards. We concur with the recommendations of the Planning Commission and all of the conditions of approval. That would conclude my comments at this point.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I don't know if I pronounced your last name correctly.
Josh Gerbrocht. So that's close. Well, again, thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. And I want to say a special thank you to the Victorville city staff that have been very helpful in this process. I know Bill was going to be here, but he's not here tonight, so I want to say thank you to him. I serve as a pastor at First Assembly of God, also as a parent of 3 students who attend Victor Valley Christian School. So I am very much personally involved beyond just it being, in a sense, my job. I'm concerned about this location of a convenience store that would sell alcohol near our church and our school. I'm asking that you would please give us or grant us the appeal tonight and not allow this conditional use permit to go through. As has been stated already, we have over 350 students that are involved in our school on a daily basis, over 250 youth during the week. We have numerous events throughout the year where we provide for our community, such as Easter egg hunts, harvest parties that have thousands and thousands of children that are on our campus. I'm very concerned about an environment that would create with having a place in this magnitude that would be selling alcohol. As been said already, we're very concerned about safety. That's probably, again, my biggest concern. We have had new night watchmen have come on board. We've had to hire that, new gates around the church and the school. Again, things have been stolen, things have been happening. So I know that the city police have written a letter that says we're not in a high crime area. But just as a parent and as a person involved with that, we see greater instances of crime now, especially since the freeway has gone in. I think that this organization, this convenience store would only enhance that. And I'm concerned about what that will impact in our area. And I understand that we live on this new freeway and that a station may need to go in, but I'm just asking that one could be not placed in this spot. Again, as where we look, we have playgrounds, we have fields that are right there, right next to this, and could there be another place that it may be better suited near the freeway. And again, as the state of California states that there shouldn't even be something considered within 600 feet, and we are right there, we're inside that, so perplexes me that this is even on consideration, and that should stop it right there. So again, I'm asking you to please oppose this, and again, as a parent of 3 kids that attend our school, and as a pastor, and we see the effects in our community, that you would please grant our appeal tonight. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, I have William Berghoff, and after him will be Clayton Moore.
I'm not talking about this specific item. I'm actually talking about the fire issue. Did you want me to wait till you guys pull that agenda item up?
You're right, it's D6.
Okay, I can
Yeah,
still
I'll
go.
call you up
Okay,
when
thank you.
we come to it. Those were all the cards that I had. You did? What's your name? Sorry, I had two stuck together here. Mark Taylor and then Matt Montes is first, and then Mark Taylor.
Good evening, Mayor, City Councilman. I'm having a hard time breathing, so please bear with me. I'm a retired code enforcement officer with the City of Ontario, California. I'm also a 24-year veteran as a broker with the State of California in real estate. I've owned several offices in Ontario and have worked in the high desert. I'm a resident of Victorville. I've lived here for over 15 years. Started off in the jewel of the desert here in Spring Valley Lake. But this gas station that's asking for the Planning Commission to get a conditional use permit, within the church area, there's already about 16 gas stations in a 5-mile radius. One more gas station is something we don't need. As a code enforcement officer, I've seen that they draw a lot of homeless, we can call them derelicts, whatever it is, panhandlers. They're at the various stations at Costco, the Shell on La Paz, at the corner of La Paz and Roy Rogers, where the across the street from McDonald's. They like to congregate in the back, set up a shop. It's a terrible situation we have in the city. What we need is a homeless shelter to help these people that are in distress. But again, another gas station, as a resident of Victorville, I seen that the land could be used for better. Brings a lot of blight, a lot of times, a lot of trash and debris, has graffiti. It just causes more services to be used by the city we could use someplace else. So I just wanted to express my opinion as a resident and a member of First Assembly of God. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, council, staff, I want to thank you for your service. I'm aware that serving the public can sometimes be a source of aggravation, and what you do is not easy. Also recognizing I may become one of those sources, I'll hurry up with my speech here. But in approving another alcohol license within Census Tract 100.25, we believe that the Planning Commission acted arbitrarily without concern for the conditions and the provisions afforded them to deny applicants' request for a license for off-sale alcohol. Because the Alcohol Beverage Commission has already deemed Census Tract 100.25 to be overpopulated, overly concentrated with off-sale alcohol license, the Planning Commission is then required to find the applicant's proposal to sell alcohol at this site to be what you probably know as PCN, public convenience or necessity. And we believe the facts do not support this finding. Simply put, we feel they missed this one. I suggest this council only needs to ask one question tonight, and that question is why? At the Planning Commission meeting, much like here tonight, there was a room full of people, and many of them came to this microphone to state their position opposed to the applicant's proposal. Not to mention over 100 letters that the Planning Commission received, and I'm sure you've been provided. Yet no one, aside from the applicant, has stepped to this microphone in support of this project. If the people, your voting constituency, are not rising up to approve this, why did the commission approve this? Why authorize the sale of alcohol in a zone and a census tract that already exceeds that authorized by the ABC? They recommend 5 based upon the population within that zone, and there's already 6. This approval will make 7. There are currently 86 licenses that have been granted by the Victorville Planning Commission to sell alcohol. We're nearing our limit. In 2012, St. Mary's Medical Center completed a community health report and discovered, this was 4 years ago, that nearly 60% of high desert residents live in an area that has undue concentration of alcohol retailers. 60%. Isn't it time we start paying attention to the numbers? Why approve the sale of alcohol some 371 feet from a church when the ABC gives the Planning Commission authority to deny such application when the sale of alcohol is proposed within 600 feet of a church? I will not take the time to recite that code. You've heard it already. Why approve the sale of alcohol some 400 feet from a school? Same provision. Why authorize the sale of alcohol some 500 feet from a playground? Same provision. Why approve the sale of alcohol at a location otherwise surrounded by dwellings, none of which have stepped forward in support or in favor of doing so? The sound of their silence should be deafening to the Planning Commission and to this council. Why authorize the sale of another alcohol outlet in a census tract that is already overpopulated when you know that 1,300 feet away, design is already in progress for yet another fueling station that will sell alcohol? That will bring us to 8 in this zone. Now we've reached the 60% that St. Mary's referred to. Approval of this application simply overpopulates. This council worked hard in 2014 in a workshop similar to the one that you had last week. In the fall of 2014, the first item on your workshop agenda read as follows, and this is a quote: limit the number of small alcohol retailers within over-concentrated census tracts. Why are we here tonight? Over 2 years ago, you recognized the problem with liquor. We understand it. It was the mom and pop liquor stores that you were trying to close the doors on, that you successfully did so. And it was a good thing. What are we going to do? Turn it over now to beer and wine? If there ever was rationalization to deny the sale of alcohol, it's this one. With the justification and jurisdictional duty that this body has, if you don't deny this one, that leads me to a when question. And that is, when would you ever deny one? I urge this council to reconsider the Planning Commission's decision. They're appointed by you, they work for you. Help them get on the right side of this application. Thank you.
Thank you. That was the last card that I had, correct? Is there one more? Maggie Martin? Go ahead, Maggie.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Finding it interesting to hear all these people speak in opposition to the liquor store thing. I think the gentleman who spoke about it from the church standpoint of it being less than 600 feet away of the school pretty much said it all. What more needs to be said? If that's the law, then you're compelled to comply. It's really that simple. Me personally, I've lived in Victorville coming up on 19 years in April, and in the last 10 years, all I've seen is gas station after gas station after liquor store after liquor store. And there was a gentleman who spoke and said something about there's not a gas station within 1 mile of the proposed site. And I'm sitting over there thinking, who cares? Just go down to the 2 blocks down and you're going to find one. There's a gas station at Nisqually and Hesperia Road, Arco at Bear Valley and Mariposa, Mobile, Shell, Arco at Amethyst and Bear Valley. I mean, they're everywhere. And it's already an absolute traffic nightmare, which would be an understatement, to get around in Victorville during the daytime hours without more building. I mean, that's kind of a busy intersection, Nisqually and Mariposa, as it is. And it's kind of traffic hazardous somewhat, too. Access onto the freeway, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not sure that would even be a really wise choice for a gas station location, other than easy access on and off the freeway. But I am certainly, I made an observation a day or two ago. I was in my Arco, Bear Valley and Amethyst. 19 years I've been going to that store, and you know what it looks like now? A liquor store. Not just in the front, but on the sides everywhere. It looks like a liquor store. So I don't see that as a positive thing. More alcohol, beer, wine, whatever you want to call it, hard liquor, for purchase in this city. I mean, I think there's an abundance enough. Believe me, if people want it, they're gonna drive 2 miles or 25 miles. They're gonna get it. So you don't need one on every couple blocks. And I turned in a public comment card. There was another thing I wanted to say, non-related. Should I do it now?
No, you have to wait until I get
Okay.
to that one.
Okay.
I have several. I think that's what's confusing me, because there's
Okay.
more than one on a card.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Maggie. Next is L. Peterson.
I'm Arl Peterson. I apologize for not turning the card in. I didn't realize it was needed to be done ahead of time. What I am here is to tell you that I'm one of the over 100 people that wrote a letter and opposed to this. I'm an old guy, I'm 75. And if we don't leave our kids and our grandkids a good place to live, how can this nation become great again? I want it to become great again. I hope you want it to become great again. And I think you should deny the application for a place that's going to serve alcohol within 300 feet of a church and a school. I really think that's not a place for it. And as was said before, the front doors of this church and school face right out on this. What are these people going to see whenever they walk out? What are you going to see when you think about it at night? You're going to have to take this one with you and remember. Today is the day to make a decision to move our city forward in a positive direction. Thank you.
I have another card, but it's Michael on Jefferson Boulevard. I cannot make out your last name, sir. I'm sorry.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and council members. My name is Michael Brewer, and I also work with the applicant. We've heard a lot of emotional arguments this evening, and we take them seriously, the retailing of alcoholic beverages. That's why we've agreed to the conditions and operating standards that are proposed in your ordinance. We are only offering to sell a small amount of beer and wine in the store, and it is an essential part of a product mix and what our customers come to expect in this type of a facility, especially with all the extra amenities that we're adding to the store. But it's important, I wanted to note a couple of things, that the way that the statute has been characterized that the Alcoholic Beverage Control needs to follow is being misrepresented to you. The statute just says that the Department of Alcoholic Beverage has the right to refuse the issuance of a license. They're not required to deny an application of a license that's within 600 feet of a sensitive use. They only have the right to if they find in their investigation that the grounds support it. And the mere proximity of a school, church, or public playground to a proposed application is insufficient grounds in and of itself to stand for denial. But that's up to the Alcoholic Beverage Control to make that finding. We're dealing with the City of Victorville's ordinances here. And your ordinance does not require you to deny an application within a certain distance of these types of facilities. So I want to make that point. And then in addition to that, though, this applicant has been very concerned about security and safety of the facility. It's a very upgraded, brand new facility. They're not going to allow it to fall into disrepair and be mistreated. They're not going to be selling alcoholic beverages in a way that should negatively impact the church. And I haven't heard any testimony so far to actually draw that nexus of how our retailing of small beer and wine under the conditions of approval that are being proposed in the use permit is actually going to negatively impact this community. We think that the services that we're offering at this station are going to meet that public convenience and necessity. We've agreed to very strict restrictions on our alcoholic beverage sales, and we don't focus on them. We're not having advertising on the front of the building indicating alcohol is even available inside the building. And our building is not oriented, the front of our building is not oriented towards the church or school. It is actually facing the Nisqually. Therefore, the church entrance can't see into our building. And so I don't see that we're going to create the kinds of concerns that are being raised. Now, we are sensitive to the church, and we are trying to meet with them and address any concerns, and we will have that ongoing discussion with them, even should a problem arise that can be attributed to the operation of our business. But we think with more surveillance cameras, more lighting in that area, and business activity, we don't think we're going to increase any kind of crime in the area. We hope to be a deterrent and offer very needed services and goods that the community finds in that area. We're here to answer any other questions that you may have about our project, and we ask for your support tonight.
Thank you. Those are all the cards that I have. Correct? Okay. So at this time, I close the public hearing, and I will request council members' comments. Do we have any?
I have some questions.
Yeah, Doug, just a question. First of all, I think the reference that was made to a state code tonight was the ABC code, the Alcoholic Beverage Control Code. Those, as I read the package, are the ABC's reasons for denying if they should choose to. Has the ABC denied an application, a license for this facility?
No, they have not.
The other thing is that we had talked about concentrations of liquor facilities. Can you kind of give us an update? Where are we with that whole discussion? Because we didn't close any doors. That was not our objective, and that's not what we did. But where are we with concentrations in this area?
So it's two different things, really. The new codes that were adopted apply to, as one of the speakers termed it, the mom and pop liquor stores that are focused on liquor. This would be an ancillary use, less than 10% of the area of the store. So it's not a liquor store. It's not advertised as a liquor store. So that overconcentration of liquor stores wouldn't apply in this case. The overconcentration from ABC's standpoint has to do with a census tract. Census tracts are various shapes and sizes. So it gives the authority to the city council to deny. Ultimately, after going through the planning commission, depending on what the planning commission decides. So it's up to the planning staff, planning commission to review whether or not there is specifically a concentration within this immediate area. And based on the recommendation tonight, based on the approval from the planning commission, I have to surmise that they believed that there is not a concentration. In fact, there are no opportunities to purchase any groceries or beer and wine in the immediate vicinity, and I would imagine that that came into their deliberations at some point.
I'm particularly concerned about the required separation from a business that sells alcohol beverages of any kind and a church or school. Does this city council use 800 feet or 600 feet as a reason? What are the standards that the city council has adopted?
Just to clarify, if you mean what we have termed just simply a liquor store, it has to do with the concentration, not necessarily a number of feet. So this is not determined to be a liquor store because it's less than 10% of the floor space for the shop.
This is a very lengthy, very in-depth, and I was trying to get through this as best as I could. The best way for me to understand this was to physically go to the area and look, which I did. And I wasn't that familiar with the area, but I did note where the playground is. Not in front, but a parking lot. It's behind, so there's even a further separation. It's church property is really well designed and enclosed in such a way to protect the students, and applaud them for that. But does the ABC set the rules that the city council has to follow, or are those ABC rules that agency follows and endorses? What has their jurisdiction have to do with the planning commission's jurisdiction to approve or deny?
So the ABC has their own set of rules. And then they have guidelines for the city council to follow. I'm not an expert in those. I would defer to either the city attorney or perhaps our director of development or one of his planning staff as to exactly when something is an absolute rule from ABC versus a guideline versus some sort of advice from ABC. Chris Borchert, director of development, please.
Good evening, and this is Alex Howdigi. He's the case planner for this case. As the last speaker and Doug have mentioned, these are ABC regulations, and as he stated, it doesn't even specify that they have to deny the license when it's within 600 feet. He said, and he knows it by heart almost. It says mere proximity by itself is not sufficient to deny the license when it's within a distance of like that to a sensitive use. So in Victorville, like was stated as well, in 2014, we did strengthen our alcohol liquor store requirements, made it very difficult. It will be very difficult to come into the city of Victorville with a new liquor store serving beer, wine, and alcohol. We do have a 600-foot. It is prohibited if you're within 600 feet of residential sensitive uses. But it was specifically written into the code that a gas station with accessory beer and wine sales can ask for a conditional use permit. And if the findings can be made that that's okay with the public health, safety, and welfare, the commission can do that, and that's what they did.
Chris, for informational purposes, and I'm asking this question, trying to clarify this, I guess. If they were outside of 600 feet, would the council have the authority to deny it? I guess
A conditional use permit? Sure.
Okay. Okay.
Sure. A conditional use permit means that there could be reasons why it's not appropriate for the area.
Okay.
That's what the church is arguing.
Right.
The church is arguing their points for why it's not appropriate.
I have one more question, and then I know that if this council looks at all the issues that we can possibly look at, make a decision, and later we find that we've made a mistake, know that everybody will say we told you so, but is the city's hands tied then from taking action to correct that? For example, let's say that neighborhood believes that they will sell beer and wine and be concerned outside and it'll cause a problem. All indications from the police department, like uses, that doesn't occur. Let's say we determine that's not going to occur. They build the facility, and then we determine that's occurring. Does this council or the planning commission or the ABC have the right to come in and say, that's all for beer and wine, you can't sell it anymore?
Yes. Yes. Because of the conditional use permit and the rights that it becomes a little bit more difficult, but if you have the reasons to show why it's causing harm to the neighboring properties, why the business isn't being run correctly, why they're in violations of their conditions of approval, if we can show that, we can go through a revocation process and remove their ability to sell beer and wine.
Can the city planning commission do that whether or not ABC has complained?
Yes.
They can?
Yes. They can still hold a license from ABC, but not a conditional use permit to use it in the city of Victorville.
That's all. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank
I
you.
have a question for you, too. For that revocation process, it seems to be a little bit complicated. Who would they go to if that were, what do they need to document? What is the process? Do they go to you? Do they come to us? Do we agendize this? How is that?
We could certainly help them get their evidence in order and file an application. Yes. It could be either somebody proposing it or it would be the city of Victorville proposing the revocation based on the evidence.
In other cases, we've had both our code enforcement working in concert with the police department to write up all the facts and statements that the planning commission and ultimately potentially the city council needs to make that decision.
Anyone else?
Well, I have more. I have something I'd like to say, but there's no more questions on my behalf. But if you don't have any more remarks, I'd like to make my remarks. Okay. So in my discretionary opinion, as a council member, I believe that it's my duty to consider the exceptions to planning policies when there are unintended consequences, undue burdens, to consider the interest of the entire community. And in reading my decision through full consideration of all aspects of the project, I have considered the views of the governing board, which is the Planning Commission, in my decision.
We will do that when we make a motion here.
Okay, so I'm getting ready to do a motion.
Well, we haven't called for that yet.
Okay, well, can I finish my thought and then I won't do a motion? So I've considered, like I said, the governing board, Planning Commission's decisions, and I've heard a couple of remarks. I didn't catch the person's name, but I did quote that you had said that the Planning Commission acted arbitrarily without concern, and that the facts don't support that finding of public convenience and necessity. I also heard those remarks, and I also read them. There are concerns for children that you have there. There are concerns for the loitering situations. There are concerns for safety. The alcohol sales become also a concern, and I think crime growth would be a concern. The north and east side of this area is heavily residential housing units. The south side is multifamily residential housing. The west is only the commercial site, which is a C2 for planning for something like the site map to get something of this nature. So I'll go ahead and Leave it to
You're
you.
done? Okay.
Is there a motion?
Well, I wanted to do a motion, but she stopped me, so.
Well, you were speaking. Can we have a motion now, please?
Yeah, so I move that we adopt the resolution 17-003, section 2, that although the planning commission approved the subject site plan PLN 16000221 in accordance with section 16.3.07.020 of the municipal code for alcohol sales as conditional. The determination to approve the project was based on findings that the city council believes were made in error. I also move that the council approve a finding of public convenience and necessity, and I furthermore move to adopt tentative parcel case number PLN 15007 to allow for the creation of the two parcels from an existing approximate 5-acre parcel on the above described property as approved. And Andre, you can probably put this better in legalese. And if there's a second, I mean, I would ask to someone in support for this to be in play.
Let me try and clarify what your intent of your motion is, if I understand it correctly. It would be to move the approval of the project with the exception of the beer and wine sales. Is that what you're?
Yes, that's what it is.
So essentially, what that motion would be approving in the resolutions affirming the Planning Commission decisions, resolutions 1, 2, and 4, and then approving the resolution 003, which denies the basically the beer and wine part of the decision.
Right, that was a recommendation that we had from
But what that would
our
do
staff.
would be allow for the project to go forward without the beer and wine sales.
Right.
So the motion is to essentially approve resolutions in the affirmative of 001, 002, 004, and approve resolution in the negative denying granting the appeal of resolution 17003.
Madam Mayor, if I may make a second motion. My comments in general are that we have a planning commission that is charged with the serious issues of the city, land use being one of the top for any municipality. It is very unusual for us to appoint planning commissioners and then overrule them, especially when a project like this, 10% floor space, that was not highlighted in a lot of the comments that I heard. The conditions that we have, this project has met those conditions, and the Planning Commission has approved that project. So my motion would be to deny the appeal.
We don't have a second yet. I assume this is a substitute motion right now, so we would take action on that and then go back to the first motion. But what I'm hearing is a substitute motion to approve all 4 resolutions denying the appeal.
I knew that you'd get us confused. Didn't the first motion die for the lack of a second? There was never a second to the first.
We never got that far. We got, I think, a substitute motion as opposed to even having a second yet. So we typically,
Yours would be the first.
you can withdraw your motion at this point. We can have discussion on the first motion, or we can have discussion on the second motion. Depending on how that comes out, we then go back to the first motion.
We want discussion on the second motion.
You're going to withdraw your motion
I'll
right now?
withdraw my motion for now.
Okay.
Well,
Okay, so now we are back to the first motion of Councilmember Gomez, that motion being to to deny the appeal on the resolutions 1, 2, and 4, which essentially basically is approval of the site plan, approval of the parcel split, etc. And then also her motion includes then adopting the resolution granting the appeal on the resolution number 3, which has the effect of denying the ability to sell beer and wine sales. That's the effect of the motion. Complicated, but that's it. So it's 3 resolutions affirming, basically would allow the project to go forward, and 1 resolution granting the appeal, which would deny the ability to sell beer and wine. That's the motion on the floor. Is there a second?
If there's no second, then it dies.
Yes,
and
it dies
didn't
for lack
go
of a
through.
second.
And so, therefore, as I was saying, general comments, we understand this is a concerning issue for sure. But legally, this process is where it is. And again, I make the motion to deny the appeal, affirming Resolution 17-001, 17-002, 17-003, and 17-004.
And those are the resolutions affirming the Planning Commission decision across the board.
Motion by Mr. Negretti, second by Mr. Kennedy. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries with Councilmember Gomez opposing.
I have a question. Councilman Negretti?
We already closed this section. I'm moving on.
Council remarks, I'll use to have my question answered.
We do not have any public hearings. We will move on to consent calendar. Consent calendar items C1 through C9 can be approved with one motion unless there is an item that needs to be pulled for discussion.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Kennedy, second by Mr. Cox. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? None opposed. Motion carries unanimously.
Now we move on to written communications. And I do have some cards. Let me see. Item D1, purchase of an HR 800 mower. Madam Clerk, please read the recommendation.
The recommendation is that the City Council approve an additional appropriation request in the amount of $536 from Fund 100, the General Fund, and approve the purchase of an HR 800 mower under the National Joint Powers Alliance Contract Number 070313-JSC as budgeted in the fiscal year 2016-2017 capital improvement project budget.
Move approval.
Motion by Mr. Cox, second by Mr. Kennedy. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? None opposed. Motion carries unanimously.
Item D2, appointments to the city's committees by council members. Madam Clerk, read the recommendation.
The recommendation would be that the city council members either reaffirm or make changes to their appointments to the city's committees.
Anybody want to start?
Well, look, can we handle them individually? On the Community Services Advisory Committee, I think people who know me know I'm pretty involved not only with items in the community, but items that the Community Services Department handle. And I've had a lot of people ask to be able to serve. And I don't want to be arbitrary, and so what I would like to do, if it's permitted by the City Council, is to advertise in an appropriate way for any and all individuals who are interested in serving, at least for the individual that I want to submit to council for approval, because it's a council approval, to go ahead and submit a resume and a short letter to the city clerk so that we can open it up to all interested parties. There's an awful lot of people involved that are quietly helping. There's a lot of people who have several years of experience that aren't on the committee, but they assist the committee, and so because we have an interest here, I'd like to see everyone have a chance. So that's acceptable. If there's no objection from the council for my appointment on the Community Services Advisory Committee, I'd like to open it up.
It is acceptable, correct?
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is.
Just hold on, I'll take them separate.
We've done that for other positions in the past. In a legislative review committee, we did that when Councilmember Valles was first on the council. She asked, and we advertised for Planning Commission interested parties for the Planning Commission, and she selected from the folks that had submitted for that. So something we do pretty fairly routinely, and hopefully the Daily Press can help us out with a little bit of advertising, letting the good folks of Victorville know that we're that you're looking for an appointee for the Community Services Advisory Committee.
Can we do it on the website?
Absolutely. Facebook, every outlet that we have.
This is for Cox's appointee, right?
Pardon?
This is for your appointee?
That's for my appointee on, I'm only talking about the Community Services Advisory Committee. I felt to keep them separately, but make sure that they don't get all jumbled up into one. That's the first one, and that's my recommendation for my appointment, not for the other individual's appointment.
And I will retain the three that I have already, the Planning Commission and who is Rob Kurt, and Debbie is for...
USA for the legislative review.
And then Ron, I forget his last name.
Ron, yeah.
Yeah, I will retain them. And I know, but...
And then for mine, Carolee, did you receive the letter for the person that's going to be a planning commissioner that I'm appointing? You should have submitted something by now.
The letter that I have on file is from Anthony Rhodes, but nothing recent.
You don't have anything from Ramiro?
Is that your Community Services Advisory?
No, at one point he was, but
okay.
He's going to submit for
I did not receive a letter from him for Planning Commissioner.
Okay.
Just for the Community Services Advisory Committee position.
And for the legislative review, then I'll open up, and if you can advertise, I'm looking for a legislative review.
Okay.
So we're going to advertise for you also then?
Only for the legislative review. The other two, we're waiting for them to submit something, so I'll get on them to submit.
On legislative review, if that's the next one, I have a very good individual that's serving very good, doing a great job, got experience, that's important. But again, I had a lot of people who want to be considered, and so find those.
Okay.
If we could. And certainly, the individuals who are there now recommend that they submit a letter, but there's a lot of interest in people wanting to serve the city, and I appreciate that. So.
And people that are actually with experience and
Yeah,
qualifications.
we're lucky that we have a lot of people.
Yeah. We don't need a motion on this one here, correct?
I think there's just a consensus, from what I understand, to go out and advertise, make those positions available, or make the public aware of those positions to submit letters of interest.
Madam Mayor, I'd just like to say there are no changes for my appointees, just reaffirming them.
And then I'd like to make a comment for the planning commissioner. It's the qualification is a lay person, so just letting you guys know that.
Okay, so.
I'm sure.
On
I'm
this,
sorry.
On this here, we will be doing the advertising, and we will bring this back at our next meeting, or?
From what I understand, there's going to be advertising for those two positions being available, and they would be, assuming Mr. Cox would then make a decision based on whoever submits proposals. We haven't gotten to the Planning Commission, I don't believe yet. I don't know, Mr. Cox, how you want to handle Planning Commission.
And Councilmember Gomez, you'd like your Legislative Review Committee appointee advertised as well as that?
Yes, just that one position.
Very well. All right, moving on.
We still haven't discussed Planning Commission, I don't believe, fully.
I'm sorry, I indicated last time we have 90 days to make the appointment.
We do.
And I wanted to make all the appointments at the same time. I don't make an appointment, but I get to the council, I'd like to do them all at the same time.
And no interest necessarily in advertising that one. That's just going to be an appointment. As I assume the rest of the council is all in consensus and agreement? Okay.
Yes, are we all in agreement?
Okay.
Moving on to D3, adopting a recognized obligation payment schedule. Madam Clerk, read the recommendation.
The recommendation is that the successor agency Board of Directors adopt resolution number RSA 17-001, thereby approving the annual recognized obligation payment schedule for the period commencing July 1, 2017 and ending on June 30, 2018.
Just a quick question. This thing has created some problems with the Department of Finance in the past?
This is something that we approve and then take it to an oversight board and finally is subjected to a final approval by State Department of Finance. They have in the past disallowed certain items. So this is basically a repeat of that same process. Not expecting any problems, no.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Kennedy, second by Mr. Cox. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? None opposed. Motion carries unanimously.
Item D4, grant of easement on Shea Road to Southern California Edison. Madam Clerk, read the recommendation.
The recommendation is that the City Council grant an easement on across APN 0368-03109 across Shea Road to Southern California Edison and authorize staff to execute said easement.
This is the work that Edison Company wants to do on the lines near VVWRA, where
Yes.
the birds are.
That's
staying.
correct.
Yes.
That's correct.
I wish they'd just go to the right solution first instead of go through three that aren't going to work before they get to, but that's the Edison Company.
We need a second.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Kennedy, second by Mr. Negretti. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? None opposed. Motion carries unanimously.
D5, award of consultant professional service provider agreement to Water Systems Consulting, Inc. for Water Master Plan update. Madam Clerk, read the recommendation.
The recommendation is that the City Council award a consultant professional services provider agreement for Water Master update to Water Systems, Inc. for an amount not to exceed $360,835.
I have a couple of questions, Madam Mayor.
Yes.
This is for the updating the comprehensive 2010 Water Master Plan. And so this will be completed in what period? 2017, 18, 19?
Program.
We're expecting it to be done this year.
Brian, if you could provide a little detail. Keith and I got caught a little flat-footed with that one.
Is it a 10-year plan? What is it?
It's about a 12-month schedule to complete the master plan update.
What period forward will it cover? 5 years, 10 years?
And it's a 5-year period. It'll cover a 5-year capital plan. And it'll also stretch out into the future for capacity projects needed for connection fees and so forth.
Thank you.
I have a question. So it's a 5-year but 12-month period. How is that?
It will take the consultant about 12 months to complete the master plan update.
Okay.
But the planning period will be for 5 years in the future and beyond.
Okay.
I move approval.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Cox, second by Mr. Negretti. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? None opposed. Motion carries unanimously.
Item D6, application for annexation to the San Bernardino County Fire Protection District's North Desert Service Zone and Service Zone FP-5. Madam Clerk, read the recommendation, and I do have a couple of cards here.
The recommendation is that the City Council adopt Resolution Number 17-005 in support of an application for annexation into the San Bernardino County Fire Protection District's North Desert Service Zone and Service Zone FP5 and approve an additional appropriation in the amount of $111,162 from the general fund for the associated filing fees.
Thank you. The first card that I have is William Berhoff.
How are you guys doing this evening? So basically, I wanted to address this because the main reason why you guys are doing this is for public safety. You're trying to get more money for that. I feel it'd be extremely irresponsible to the property owners of the city of the council to move forward with the plans to offset costs for fire services. The city has other avenues that it can use to address the budgetary shortcomings, and I feel that the council is stretching its imagination basically you guys aren't, I feel like the imagination is being stretched too far. You guys are looking for fiscal ways to solve some of these issues when we need to be solving them when planning ways. Currently our city has a big crime and homeless issue with transients and can be closely tied to the large amount of budget hotels and motels within the city, and especially in the old Victorville area. If you look at it, there's actually a disproportionate amount of crime around these old budget hotels and motels, and it is an issue for us, and that is what's causing a large increase in transients, homeless issues, as well as drug and other crimes. I'm not wanting to come down or complain on businesses that do the right thing, but Victorville does have a problem by having such a large amount of budget hotels, motels within our city compared to neighboring towns, and also comparatively when looked at per capita capital populace. The scenario, in my opinion, is the reason that our city has become a dumping ground for transients, criminals, and homeless, which we have seen. We've seen them all coming here, and we're trying to figure out why are they all here. And it is a big reason. Actually, I did a long study on this, trying to appropriate how this was happening. I'd encourage the city manager and the city council to look into this matter. There are ordinances that you guys can do this as far as to help generate revenue and cure this issue. Looking at the similar models, like Elsinore had a similar problem. What they went ahead and did is they actually resulted in a 20% reduction in crime by cracking down on the budgetary hotels and motels. By doing that, and actually saved their budget overall $1.2 million eventually, and that was over, I think, a 5-year span. Sorry, my notes are a little jumbled here. The first would be to create a fee to the motel/hotel where the residents have stayed longer than 7 days. This is to prevent transient use. You guys could do that pretty easily. There could be a nominal amount, but it would allow for funding source for the city to help deal with the burden and can be a conduit, basically, to de-incentivize the business from providing transient housing to people who have a high potential to becoming homeless. And part of this ordinance, I would like the city to adopt an ordinance that requires mandatory reporting of a situation to where it would be reasonable to assume that a family with children is homeless and or drugs or crimes are happening within a budgetary hotel or motel. I think it should be a mandatory reporting for these people to do that and there should be a 3 strikes, you're out type of issue to where you guys actually revoke their issuance of their business permit. I think that is a good thing to do. The city's strapped for money, and we need to think of ways that are outside of the box to tackle these issues, and I don't think increasing the taxes on the homeowners and the people that are owning parcels is a way to do that. I think that there's many ways to get this done. In addition to this, I also think that the city needs help with code enforcement. A big issue, the reason why we have crime in Old Town, and it's a bigger problem there, in addition to this, is the broken window effect. It's not just a theory. It was proven in New York many years ago. And we looking at the budget and analyzing and stuff, I realized the city doesn't have money to hire more code enforcement officers. You guys don't have it. So by making programs like this that actually deal with the issue and create funding for those sources to hire more code enforcement officers, I think it would be positive.
You have 30 seconds.
See the light going. Anyways, thank you.
Thank you. Clayton Moore.
All right, good evening.
And you have 3 minutes, sir.
Yes, I understand. Thank you. I'm going to focus my comments on the special tax, the escalator, which I think is an increase. Last week at your workshop, you talked about that special tax for the fire protection zone of being about $148 to $150 a year with a 3% increase. And my question is focusing on that 3% increase in the sense of is that 3% increase comes to about $5 on page 4 of your report in your agenda. That's what you estimated it to be, from $148 to $153. So would 3% of the following year be based on $150, or would it be based on $158? Does it escalate the same way that the rate would escalate? That's what I want to focus on, because according to my calculations, the 2017 tax would be $148, 2018 $153. By 2022, it goes up to $173. Every 5 years would be a $25 increase, if it's a stable $5 increase every year, not more than $5. But at $5, it goes up $25 in 5 years. So in 30 years, it doubles. So I'd like to see more math on that side of the equation, as I asked for a week ago. That's what I came up with, based on the figures supplied in your report. And so again, as a homeowner, I'm curious about how I could, realistically budget for that, especially over time. I'd like to understand the reality of it over time in the context of the other expenses the city has. such as the Nisqually Overpass to finish paying for, and the Green Tree project that's also listed in your agenda. You know, the funding sources for that, you know, in the context of this should also be, again, put all together. Thank you.
Thank you. Those are all the cards that I have. Is there any?
Madam Mayor, before you get into any questions or comments from the council, just so the council is aware and the public's aware, that 3% is not an automatic increase. That's something that the County Board of Supervisors considers on an annual basis, based on costs, based on inflation, based on cost of living, that sort of thing. It has not always been a complete 3%. I don't know the exact history of it, but to estimate it for the next 10, 15, or 20 years, it would be inappropriate to say that it's going to be 3% every year, because we simply don't know that. The public would have the opportunity for input with the Board of Supervisors every time annually that they consider this potential cost increase.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I have it's for clarification. I'll give both of them to you, Doug. Somewhere in this report, and I read it carefully, but you made the comment of the increase, 8% would go to the city and 8% to the county. If I recall that, we were talking about there would be a stated amount of taxes pledged to County Fire. And then after that, were you talking about the increase in the normal property tax, not the $150 fee? What is what's 16%? Is that the amount of total property tax we receive of the total property tax bill?
Yeah, so currently the city receives approximately 16% of the property tax that's spent in Victorville. So for every $100 that you pay to the county through your property taxes, 16 of that comes to the city of Victorville for general services. For the purposes of discussion and comparison, we effectively have assigned that to the fire department to pay for the contract, just for comparison purposes only. That's not the way it actually works. The item that's before you tonight would be to request that LAFCO make a change to that, and that change would involve a permanent allocation to San Bernardino County Fire in exchange for annexation into the district. Using the chart that is on, I'm not sure which page this is of the proposal, I think it's page 4 or so, with the box around it. That's estimated to be $9,509,926. That is estimated to be 56% of the property tax that we would otherwise normally collect, which would be estimated at $16.9 million. So if this is approved by the City Council, it would go to the Local Agency Formation Commission for further study, review, and a staff report would be developed. That would perfect all of these numbers with the tax assessor's estimates for next year. That's what they do. And ultimately, at one point in time, which would be July 1st, that split would occur, and then permanently it would continue to go on. So effectively, we would, based on this example, or based on this estimation, the city would retain about 44%. Remainder to the general fund is about $7.4 million of that money, 7.5, let's call it. And then 9.5 would go to County Fire for continued operations. Add to that the roughly $5.8 million in FP5 parcel tax, and that gives them the funding that they need to continue the services that they're offering now, to add a paramedic crew starting July 1st, to open Fire Station 315 and add an engine company, which is 9 personnel, in approximately 2 years, 2 to 3 years, and to replace all of the equipment that we have been unable to replace in the last 10 years. So on a go-forward basis, our new property tax amount would be estimated about $7.5 million for next fiscal year. If property tax rise at 3%, 4%, or whatever, it would affect that just naturally through the tax assessor's calculations. The parcel tax is separate. That's that roughly $5.8 to $6 million. That would go to county fire as a parcel tax that separately the County Board of Supervisors could raise by up to 3% on an annual basis. So those two funding sources come together.
Doug, let's take all of this complexity that we've built into this thing and boil it down to the simplest basic truth. We are raising the property tax on our citizens by $6 million. We're going to shuffle that between us and the county. We're going to keep 3 or 4. They're going to take the rest, and we're going to hand over all the fire service to the county. Now, that's the deal.
That is correct.
The citizens are going to pay $6 million more in property taxes by this method. I gotta, and all the rest of it is, I'm sorry, I'm an accountant. It's mumbo jumbo. I know mumbo jumbo. I got a question on page 15 of the plan of service from the, got a budget of $15.4 million next year. There are 2 items at the bottom of that. One is vehicle replacement fund of $630 million roughly. A vehicle replacement catch-up fund of, did I say million?
Yeah.
I didn't mean million.
1,000.
I'm sorry.
What page is that again? I'm sorry.
600, I'm on page 15. It's
Okay.
651,000 for the replacement fund, and I'm sorry, 630 and 650 for a catch-up fund. A total of about $1.3 million. That's, as I understand it, is focused on equipment replacement. Will that be spent this year, or is it just going into a fund that the county's going to hold and spend when they get around to it?
I don't know if you want to hear from me or from Dan Muncy, our fire chief, but essentially the vehicle replacement fund, the way a vehicle, and this is going to sound like mumbo jumbo again, maybe Dan can simplify it, but essentially the way a vehicle replacement fund works is you take the cost of an engine, fire engine, say that's $600,000, and you expect it to last 10 years, you need to collect approximately $60,000 a year to replace that engine when it's at the end of its life in 10 years.
What's the approximate cost of replacing an engine?
An engine is, I would say, $550,000 to $750,000. Is that correct, Dan? In that neighborhood?
And do we need to replace right now?
Well, Dan?
Immediately, you need to replace 3 engines and a truck, which is significantly more expensive.
When you say immediately, do you mean that the engines are going to stop running this next year? Or going to
Absolutely. In case in point, I went to the city manager's office today with a bill for a fire engine, and it's essentially $14,000 to make or repair. The fire engine's a 2002. It's been frontline. We have, today, we have a Grant fire engine in the picture there. That's your most reliable engine. The next 2 engines were built in 2006. Our standards of replacement are based on National Fire Protection Agency guidelines. The next engines are 2002. Our next engine's in 1996, and then we have a 1989. So you can see they far outseated their lifespan. Yeah. Earlier this year, we had a $38,000 repair on the engines. So it's not only the repair costs are stacking up, but their reliability is fire engines on fires and emergency incidents.
Yeah. So the second part of your question about the vehicle replacement catch-up fund, I commented that the fire department's intention is to open Fire Station 315.
Yeah, hang on.
Okay.
Hang on, Doug. If we need to replace 3 engines, and they are how much? 500,000-600,000?
Yeah.
So $1.5 million ought to buy us 3 engines?
Yeah.
Pretty quickly?
No, sir. That engine right there is $660,000, and it's anticipated to increase 10% next year.
I'm sorry, Dan, say again.
$660,000.
It's closer to $2 million to replace 3 engines.
So we might get 2 in this next year out of this budget.
So the vehicle replacement catch-up is intended to catch us up on those 3 engines that we need to have replaced. So the money that 2 to 3 years from now will hire fire department personnel, the new staffing, is going to be saved for now to replace fire engines for a 2 to 3 year period.
And explain to me why we can't replace the fire engines ourselves.
We don't have the money to do it.
We're going to pay it to the county next year.
Correct.
How is that?
That would come from the FP5 monies.
So we need that $6 million from local taxpayers. All right, so.
Correct.
The decision before us is whether we're going to assess a $6 million tax on our local property owners to pay for fire and turn everything over to the county.
Yes. Yes.
What other choices do we have?
As far as funding, I did put some options in your staff report. One of the options that you could have that would bring potential additional revenue to the city would be to go for a special election. A special election for fire services would take quite a bit of time to put together.
June?
I don't know exactly what the time frame would look like as far as when we could do that.
What if we gave the citizens by June the option of paying the $150 to the county or paying $100 to us, and that would get us $4 million instead of $6 million, as soon as we could get it in place and replace the fire engines that way?
That is an option. A special tax is very difficult to pass because it has a 2/3 majority requirement.
I suspect that if the voters in this city had the choice between paying $140, because we'd have to tell them, if you don't approve the 100, we don't have any choice. We got to go with the county at 140. That's your choice. Take your pick.
150.
You don't 150. Don't you think we'd get a pretty good turnout on that vote?
I think we would get a good turnout, and I believe it would fail.
Okay, then we'd go to the county. If the voters
That's
don't want something else, we'd go to the county.
Right. Right.
Don't you think the voters in this city ought to have something to say about this new tax that we're going to assess on the property?
Absolutely. Absolutely. This item is on the agenda. The voters can come here and express their opinion. And then additionally, when LAFCO makes a decision, if they decide in favor of the annexation, the voters would have an opportunity to protest that vote.
Madam Mayor, may I make a comment real quick? I think I agree with Councilmember Kennedy, just to simplify it. We're talking about a new budget of $15 million. Even if we raise that budget every year for 3%, that's like $450,000. We would never be able to catch up with all the unfunded requirements the fire department has right now. Breathing apparatus, engines, stations, they will catch up, ideally, with the county FP5. But if you do not, the city of Victorville cannot afford to be on a contract anymore with fire. The service demands have outpaced our revenues. There is no money, and if we don't do this, there's going to be layoffs. In addition to being able to turn this responsibility over to the county, we'd also be able to have 5 more deputies, correct me if I'm wrong. We'd also be able to return the city back to work, to a 40-hour work week. There are many other positives as well. So the real question is, would you rather have $15 million a year growing out of control, trying to catch up to things that there's no way we're going to be able to pay for? Or would you rather have a $148 parcel tax? So for me, it's very simple. It's not ideal. But on the other hand, we're limited in our opportunities, and this is apparently a win-win solution. But if we adjust the water rates and we say, we've been on a flat rate all these years, now we're going to have the top users pay more, and the majority of the residential units, they're going to pay less. We're going to tier that system. All people hear is, you're raising my water rates. So with this, it's very simple. We cannot afford to stay on a contract anymore.
Well, we can't. The only way we can afford this is by assessing tax on the property owners. That's it. That's the only option, whether we do it ourselves or with the county. You might be right. This might be the best deal. My problem is, we're going to plunge. We're going to make a forever decision that there's never any coming back from. And this is the only option we've considered. We have not looked at any other choices.
We have. There was a 2-3 years. I mean, you can say more about this where we're getting our neighboring cities like Hesperia, Adelanto, and Hesperia, Adelanto, and Apple Valley. And I asked for those reports to see if we can make something as a joint unification. I haven't gotten those reports, but I was glad to hear that there was a report already in play, and now you can express more about what it is that you guys did 2-3 years ago. Because I've also asked, why can't we hold our own fire protection services? And in 2008, it was switched over. So, and you explained that to me very nicely as well. So I don't know if that's something that you can allude to.
Sure. So a couple of years ago, this council, as well as the councils in Apple Valley, Hesperia, and Adelanto, agreed to look at combining services for both police and fire. The police agency that was considered would have been for all 4 of the cities of the Victor Valley. The fire agency that was looked at would not have included Apple Valley for a variety of reasons. So that, including Apple Valley, and that wasn't studied. Essentially, that study showed that the potential return on investment for the police agency was an estimated 16 or so years out that you would potentially cross over to savings. It essentially died at that point because it's simply too far away. Now you're using guesswork. The fire agency that was considered was shorter than that. I want to say it was 4 or 5 years that there was potentially a return on investment for differing reasons, but ultimately for, again, a variety of reasons, largely because one of the agencies considered was Adelanto, and I don't think there was a lot of interest in, at that time, entering into a joint use type of agreement with an agency that was bankrupt or effectively bankrupt at the time, especially for an essential service that you could potentially then be required to provide. If you were to exclude Adelanto, now you're down to only 2 agencies, and the scale savings really kind of went away. This council hasn't considered, anytime recently at least, going back to city fire. That is an option. That would give the council the negotiating authority with the fire union that would be in place most likely. You would then control your own destiny to a certain degree, but the way public salaries are negotiated, there you may be able to provide some savings, but my estimation would be that it would not be significantly less than what county fire or Apple Valley firefighters ultimately make. So I don't think there's a tremendous amount of savings there, certainly nothing that provides the punch that FP5 does.
And then another thing for Apple Valley, yes, they had their voters go ahead and submit their votes. First time it didn't pass. Second round it eventually passed. And I went on a ride-along for 8 hours, and I visited all 5 stations, and I got a lot of information. And one of the important information bits and pieces that I think I should bring out is, although Apple Valley did not do their own FP5, like we're trying to do a possible annexation, some of the things that Apple Valley wasn't able to do, and we still kind of have and would have that opportunity, is if Apple Valley has their station with a call for 911, they will not be able to contact us in Victorville or their local fire station to cover that. And so on those ride-alongs, every time there was station 311 and their medics engines were leaving, we had to have another nearby cover that. And if there was another call, they had to cover. So there's not enough coverage, and we're using 315 as a storage space. And I know Muncie is better at explaining what all this information was. I met with Captain Gregoli, Captain Aguirre, the battalion chief, so I got a lot of insight into what it is that the possible annexation would be. And I'm sorry that the workshop wasn't suffice, but to me that ride-along expressed so much. We contract with AMR. When they're at a level 0, we get called in, but when we don't have that accessibility because all of our trucks are being used on a 911 call, they're calling people from Summit in Redlands to cover something that's probably 5 minutes away. So, I mean, Mr. Muncie, if you would, elaborate on that, I mean, you would help greatly.
So the greatest benefit for joining county fire is regionalized fire protection. And they gave an example during the workshop of Hesperia Fire Station, Apple Valley Fire Station, a county fire station, a Victorville station, being within a couple of miles from each other. With regionalized fire protection, we're able to be a little more fiscally conservative with the dollars to provide better coverage. And that's a little bit what Council Member Gomez was talking about. The second efficiency is right now, if you were to go and open your own fire station 315, you're going to pay $2.3 to $2.5 million. The proposal in front of you is that the county share in those costs. The city of Victorville doesn't bore the whole cost of that fire station. And the same is true with the paramedic squad at Fire Station 313. The county fire protection district's bearing those costs. With the contract, we can't do that as well. With the contract, we have to look at the borders of the city and what is the city providing. But we don't have the flexibility that annexation would allow us to do.
You go back and look at your argument several years ago, the argument was just the opposite. By having the contract, you can cover for each other because it's county fire stations, counties in the city, you can cover for each other. When did you change that policy?
Policy hasn't changed, it's enhanced by annexation. With the county of San Bernardino under a contract, we're able to make a phone call at any given point and put 30 fire engines into the city. That
You
still
argued
exists.
that by having the contract with the county, that we would have more coverage than just the city because they would, since the county was operating in and out, they would be able to cover for each other. Now you're saying with the contract you can't. You have to join the fire district.
No, sir.
That's a change of policy.
No, sir, that's not what I'm saying. You have the ability to call additional fire engines and help under a contract, and that's what we've been doing with the city of Victorville now for almost 10 years. The difference is being able to fiscally share resources and to co-staff fire stations like Station 315. Again.
Okay, I'll stop. You cover so many items that
Yes, sir.
You indicated if you open up this fire station, if we annex to the district, 315 I believe it is, they can share that cost with the county. If you have an area now that station would cover, what covers that area now? And by contract, why couldn't you open the station and cover the same area?
We certainly can with a contract. So to open Fire Station 315 alone would be $2.4 million.
To open it alone, how much is it to open the station sharing the cost for the large area that's in the county area?
Under the proposal in front of you to annex, that cost would be split 50-50 is the financial modeling for both the fire station and the squad at 313. And our current squad at 311 is being shared by the county. This leaves the opportunity for us to spread the money out and be more conservative.
I absolutely agree. I don't want to.
Let me put it into a simple dollars. I'm going to cut all the accounting out because I'm not in accounting. What we're asking for with annexation is an increase in $2.4 million. It would cost, if you were to open your fire station, to provide for apparatus, to do your SCBAs, to open a squad at 313, you're looking at over $6 million. So the cost savings by annexation would be approximately $3.6 million in the first year.
So if, and I'm not suggesting that the city have its own fire department, but if the city did, you couldn't arrive at reciprocal agreements?
We absolutely do have automatic aid and mutual aid, and that deals with responses, but it doesn't do, what it doesn't deal with is the financial aspect of the fire department.
Since I have questions, let me continue if I can. If you have the station at the fairgrounds, is that the headquarters station?
Yes, sir.
How many trucks do you have there?
We have one fire engine and one fire truck, a paramedic squad, and a battalion chief each day.
So when you get a fire call, do all those vehicles respond?
Yes, sir, usually.
And then there's no one there, and so you indicated you have to take another station and send a fire station there. Why? Why can't it respond from wherever it's at? I do know it's 2 fire calls, not 1, when you do that.
So if we
According
have...
to the firefighters I talk to, that ends up with 2 fire calls at 1 fire because you're responding to the other station. I don't understand that.
No,
It's
this...
one call.
This is not just something we do in Victorville. This is something that's done across the United States and probably the world. But as you have a major incident, you have to bring in resources to cover that area. Just because there's a fire going on doesn't mean someone's not going to have a heart attack nearby. So we bring in our county stations that are a little more slower. For example, Spring Valley Lake routinely comes into Victorville.
Okay. I have one more question. This is to Doug. It involves you. If you go back to the presentation that you made, you said your proposal to LAFCO, and I can read it or I'll just paraphrase it. The proposal would involve the fire district getting the 148 per year, next year 152, and 16 million, 15 to 16 million from the current taxes, 13.2 being assigned from our fire taxes to the county. About 40 minutes later, 35 minutes later, the city manager said it was his expectation of the 9.5 million going to the county, and that way that would make the budget 15 million max because they could get by with that for this year. Now, who does LAFCO? You're going to devise your own plan. You're going to ask for 13.2 million of our property taxes. City manager is going to ask for 9.5 million of the property taxes. I remember the LAFCO rep saying they would make the decision based upon the plan of service. That really makes me nervous because we don't do the plan of service. The fire department does.
So there's two different things. One is the total amount. If you assume the full $15 million, $15.4 million that the fire department would need without FP5, that takes approximately 90% of our property tax on a permanent basis. With FP5, that drops down to approximately 56%. So it's two separate, not even proposals. It's what the alternative would be if you didn't incorporate or annex into FP5 as a part of this item. The plan for service itself is actually attached to this document and will go down, if it's approved, it will go down to LAFCO tomorrow, probably late morning or early afternoon for submittal so that we can hopefully have it adopted by LAFCO in time for the July 1st implementation date.
Well, but again, I don't want to argue. I listened to that tape twice. Dan's comments was with the current plan to add the squad and open 315 and the equipment needed, you're looking at 16, 17 million. This is why that his proposal is 13.2 million plus. So it wasn't either or, it was both put together. I can play the tape to you if you'd like, and you contradicted that by saying no, that your proposal was 9.5 of the current and the tax. Now, it wasn't 15.2 and no tax, it was both. I had to go back and listen to it twice. It's very clear.
I haven't listened to the tape. If that was said, I can tell you that's an error.
Okay.
Without listening to it, and actually the tape at this point, I don't want to say it's immaterial because it is material in the event that there's confusion about this, but I think both the agenda item and the plan for service and the accounting work that would be done by LAFCO will make that very clear that it is not, in fact, both.
I'm sorry for being confusing, Mr. Cox. If you look at page 15 on the plan for service, it lays it out in black and white. That is the plan for service for Victorville today. That's when it goes to LAFCO. It's not going to be enhanced. It's what the city and what the fire district believe is, and LAFCO requirements is the best process to move forward. We have to open Fire Station 315. We have to have more paramedic squads to run the medical aids. We have to have apparatus replacement. We have to have station replacement. Those are the requirements set forth. But I'm sorry if I misspoke or was confusing. It's absolutely in black and white in the service plan in front of you.
Have you budgeted for the breathing apparatus in this 15.4 million?
You would not see a bill for the breathing apparatus. That $700 and some odd $1,000 would not go to the city. The fire protection district would pay those costs.
That's if we accept this.
Yes, sir.
Proposal. If we don't accept the proposal, if we decide not to annex and we continue with the county contract, do you have a budget for the, are you going to charge us for the breathing apparatus or not?
Yes, sir. I'm sorry. I have no other option but to charge
I
you.
understand. That's fine. All I'm saying here, I'm not necessarily arguing with a contract with the county. That might be our best option. I wouldn't mind considering others. CAL FIRE, I understand, contracts with 3 cities in this county. Maybe we should at least get a proposal from them. What I'm not comfortable with is imposing a tax by our decision on our voters, not voters, whether they vote or not doesn't matter, our citizens, without giving them the option under Prop 218 to vote on that. That is a dodge, in my opinion. We're playing a shell game on the voters by going in, annexing into this pre-existing fire protection district, and we know exactly what we're doing. Imposing a tax on our citizens, and we don't want to be the ones who did it. So by annexing, it's the county doing it through this fire protection district. It's not true. We're doing it by our decision. I think voters have a right to speak to that. I really do. And I am just not comfortable with this whole strategy. We may get to the same place, and that's okay with me if that's what the voters want. But to be pushed down to the wire like this, making this kind of a decision, giving away everything we have in our fire equipment and facilities, that decision is made and gone forever once it's approved by LAFCO.
Well, I don't think we're giving away our stuff because we've already paid as citizens for that. That was one of the arguments that was brought, and I think Mr. Cox asked for a legal opinion to make sure if it was policy or law. That's still servicing the residents of the city of Victorville. It's not like we're giving it away.
Well,
we're not going to charge them again.
We're giving
so
away
I disagree
local
vehemently with what you've said. If you look at the city of San Bernardino City, they've already annexed. If you look at Needles, they've also done it. If you go to the January 18 LAFCO meeting that's going to be held by Kathy McDonald, you'll also see that Chino, Upland, and Loma Linda will be doing the same thing. I've actually spoken with the city manager in Upland, too.
It doesn't make it right for Victorville.
Yeah, we're talking about Victorville.
We have our voters.
I'm talking about Victorville and giving you other analogies and other places where you can go get your information as well. And we have differing opinions, and it's fine. So no need to attack anyone in particular opinions. We dissent, and it's okay.
Okay, that's enough.
It's not, I'm certainly
Okay.
not attacking anyone.
Well, okay, it's okay
I
to do that. Be respectful, please. It does.
Not from the audience.
Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor.
Madam Mayor, can I protest, please? We have a public speaking protocol. We don't take discussion from the audience, so can we continue?
This is addressed to the council. We know that we absolutely have to do something. We know that we can go to the LAFCO procedure and you have to protest it out. That's a different procedure than voting for it. We know that agencies throughout the state of California go through the protest because it's not likely that it will be protested out. We know that 218, for certain taxes require a two-thirds vote. Two-thirds are sometimes impossible to get. Quite frankly, I was under the opinion, and still am, that this could go to the voters on a majority vote. And I may be mistaken. We know that we have to do something, whether it's to continue to contract with the county, continue to contract with CAL FIRE, to meet again with the local agency. All across the country, they contract with private fire companies. We haven't looked at any of that. What we have looked at is basically you have 1 week to adopt this to go to LAFCO, or the sky's going to fall. The sky's not going to fall. If you look at our finances, we know we're going to run out of time, but we're not going to run out of time June 30, or March 30, or April 1, or September. I would find it almost impossible for me to tell the voters and property owners of this city, we're going to add $150 to every house, and oh, by the way, you can't call it a tax because it's a fee, and oh, by the way, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to hand it to the county and LAFCO. therefore I'm not raising the fee, but it's for fire protection for the city. That's skirting the issue, and I think we have to be absolutely honest. We have to go to the voters and say, here's what's at stake. You're a good salesman. For 2 weeks, you've convinced me you're a good salesman. And if you can be a good salesman, and I think the city council would even join, as long as the people are voting on that, they can make a decision. Do you want an assessment on your property and we continue the ownership on the decisions and contract, or do you want to turn it over to the county? Let the people decide. Now, some dangers in that, because there may not be anyone who would turn out, and it may be that they would both fail. But then if it does, we know that we have no choice but to go to LAFCO and do exactly what you're advocating. So no, it's not lost, and the sky doesn't fall after all, but I cannot possibly vote for a $150 assessment. It's a tax, and we're raising it without the public having a right. I think the whole idea of 218 in the state legislature is when you raise the taxes, the public has the right to be heard. And I'm going to be an advocate that the public has the right to be heard.
We just reviewed the 2016 financial statements. The general fund had a $2 million surplus this last year, and we have an accumulated reserve of about $4.5 million. We had a $2 million increase in property tax revenue this last year. We had a $4 million increase in sales tax revenues. I don't know that it's unrealistic to expect those kind of increases again. Be nice if we get them. If we get no increase and we manage our spending, can we expect another $2 million surplus next year? We know both the police and fire contracts are going up, so chances are we won't see that surplus. All I'm saying is that we're not in desperate straits. We have options we can consider. We have choices we can make. We don't have to make this choice tonight. We can look into this with greater care.
How long do we want to continue this till?
I want to continue it. We have to make a decision on this tonight.
A motion, or do you want to discuss it?
Pardon me, I've said everything.
Well, I think the public has the right to vote on it. I think that would be my motion. I don't know how to word that in the legalese that the attorney would require, because we've got to figure it out. But to do this without having the public input. Does anybody ever realize that we're doing this and there's no public hearing? It wasn't advertised as a public hearing. Come on. My motion is that we move forward with speed and knowing that we have to do something, and that staff take an opportunity to look at this again to see what they can negotiate, but that we schedule this for an election so the public can vote on this as soon as possible.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Cox, second by Mr. Kennedy. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye.
Abstain.
The motion carries with Councilmember Gomez voting no and Councilmember Negretti abstaining.
I can move on to the next item. Item D7. Adoption of the fiscal year 2017-2018, 2021-2022 consolidated plan priorities. Madam Clerk, read the recommendation.
The recommendation is that the City Council adopt the priorities identified through the citizen participation process for the fiscal year 2017-2018 through 2021-2022 consolidated plan.
And question, we appointed 2 council members that sat on a committee to assist and help and make some decisions. Those 2 members, who are the 2 members of the council that sat on that? How to review?
This is actually something different, Jim.
This
This is a new item. It's a 5-year planning horizon for CDBG projects in general.
I know, but don't we have 2 council members that sit on the committee for CDBG grants and the allocation?
Eric's on it.
Yes.
Yeah, and
Mayor
that's
Pro
all-
Tem.
Gloria's on it.
Okay, so now because this is regarding the planning and staff's going to be involved, are those same 2 members going to be involved in this process?
Andre, is this one I have to recuse on? There's no proposal here to pay money to anybody.
No.
No, there is
No
no
money.
proposal, so there's no financial impact.
No. It might be helpful for our Economic Development Director, Sophie Smith, to explain this item in comparison to the other item that you're referring to that'll come to the council at a later time.
Good evening. This item is twofold. One was to update the entire council, not just the committee, on the actions that have taken place since the council adopted the Citizen Participation Plan in September of 2016. As we mentioned back then, it was the first step to start moving toward adopting and framing the next 5-year consolidated plan. The 2 council members are going to sit on a committee that actually looks at the applications received and the dollars requested for the CDBG grants. This is for the larger plan. These are larger goals set forth in the plan, and the committee members will work with staff specifically on the dollar amounts for for the upcoming fiscal year, the first year of the plan.
I just wanted the clarification. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Cox, second by Mr. Negretti. All those
Give
in
me
favor?
a moment. I'm not sure what agenda item we're on.
Sorry.
This is item D7.
Ready?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? None opposed. Motion carries unanimously.
Item D8, Fringe Health Insurance Employer Paid Contribution Survey. The recommendation is none.
Madam Mayor and Council, I requested last June, when we were talking about the increased health cost. I'm sure that almost everyone is aware of what's going on at the federal level, or more importantly, what's not going on. What's actually going to happen with that health plan that they're talking about. That health plan primarily is different than what we have in the city. It covers people who don't have income or underinsured or not insured. In our case, we have traditionally, as other public agencies and a lot of private agencies, if not most, provide insurance for the employee. Some employees let me know that their insurance cost went up. At that time, I had recommended that the city add at least $100 a month to the employee's participation because it was going up. We didn't do it for a lot of reasons and continued it again mid-year. And what has happened now is the out-of-pocket cost for employee and family just from July to December is $142 more. Our employees, I guess it's 3 or I don't know. I think it's employee, spouse, and 1 child, or maybe it's 2, but I think it's 1. The city's paying $750, and the employee is paying $1,300. Now, I know several employees who want to go and buy their own and so they can buy it a lot cheaper. I don't know why ours is so expensive. I know at least 1 council member that dropped out and went and bought their own a lot cheaper. But if we're going to continue with this kind of a plan where the employee, after the city of Victorville pays $750, that they have to pay $1,300 to cover their families, there's something wrong with the plan. Now, I asked that staff attach the employee paid contributions. It is there. City of Victorville is currently $750. VVWRA is $750. Let me say right now, it's very unfair to look at that without looking at all the other benefits, because employees sometimes will trade benefits because the age of the population, the number of dependents, whether they have different needs, and so they will give up holidays for more health and vice versa. But I'm just talking about the health. or the other spouse has coverage, and therefore they don't need the coverage under the city. City of Barstow, the contribution to the employees is $1,000. Mojave Water Agency $1,020. Town of Apple Valley pays $760, and then they match dollar for dollar for another $360. Mojave Desert AQMD pays the employees the health portion $1,193. Now, by the way, this is health and dental. This is what our and eyeglass. And City of Lancaster is $1,200 a month. City of Palmdale has an employee-paid cap PPO plan premium $1,946. The city pays the employees capped at $250, and the city pays $1,696. Some of our employees have a $2,000 a month health package, which needs to be looked at. But if we're not going to look at it, well, we need to look at it. But we also need to increase that amount. I make the proposal. I am for it. In fact, I don't think the 100 is enough. I think it has to be the 140. It's 229. In budget time, we're going to talk about this again. And heavens to Bitsy, I hope that somebody at the federal level gets a hand on this health issue and gets it under control, because it won't be long that we can't afford it.
Mr. Cox, I'm going to tell you right now, if we don't do that proposal in 2 years, we can pay for a fire engine. So you're not getting any vote from me on that one.
Well, I'm going to cover the employees first.
You lose, but...
Well, I understand. All have difference of opinions. But I requested that this be put on the council agenda. By the way, if we reduce it by 100 a month, we can buy another fire engine, if that's the issue. It's all the employees, but we'll have a good fire engine. That's the proposal. Minimum increase for the city. They don't have the insurance, we cap them at $250. I recommend that stay in place.
Problem is, I will restate it, our employees have benefits that are far in excess of what our average resident has. When we increase those benefits, our residents are paying for it.
So we're careful about not increasing the fee, which is not a tax, but yet we increase this.
We often have difference of opinions, and I respect those. I simply believe that we are at the very low end and our employees deserve more. That's why I made the recommendation. I make the motion to increase it by 100 a month. There's no second. I understand that, but I make that motion.
Motion by Mr. Cox, second by Ms. Gomez. All those in favor?
Aye.
The motion is what?
Increase the city's portion for the health benefit, which includes eye, dental, eyeglass, and health insurance for 100 a month per employee.
Now,
effective, so as it can be put together, which is 30 to 45 days.
At the last meeting in December, I apologize, this is something we had intended to bring forward last December and didn't. One of the comments that I made was if it's the council's direction, we can implement this effective January 1st. It would result in a fairly modest but slight back pay situation for the employees. If the council's direction, that was the intent, was to have it considered before January 1st. I don't want to put a vote in your heads one way or the other. I'm just saying we can implement it July 1st, February 1st, back to January 1st, whatever the council gives us direction to do.
Motion then would be, unless it's going to cause a problem, February the 1st, or as soon as reasonably possible without causing a hardship on administration to put it into effect.
There's,
Or are
second
we
that.
able
So
to?
I have a motion and a second.
there's a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
no.
Abstain.
Motion carries with Mr. Kennedy voting no and Mr. Negretti abstaining.
And whether we like it or not, we need to look at this again during the budget process because of the outlandish cost that health insurance is charging everyone. Out of control. Thank you.
Okay, so we move on to item E, public comments. And I do have several cards. The first one is Clayton Moore, and after him is Norm Miller.
Mayor, council members, my name is Norm Miller, and I guess I'm back here again. I'm still unhappy with the bridge and intersection there with the Mariposa and Armagosa. Part of the problem is that people are stopping in the middle of the intersection. You can't get through. The other part of the problem is I don't think the signals are coordinated quite right, because I was there the other day and the signal on the bridge turned red and the signal on Mariposa turned green. And that's not, to me, the way you get traffic flow. So maybe the city, I know the city can't do anything about the bridge signals, but maybe it could check a little bit about coordinating the street signals to go with the bridge a little bit, because it does it in every direction. And it's just, maybe it's just the way Victorville is. Not that I'm complaining about it, but we got a bad intersection there, and I don't know if they went through trying to fix it one time and they couldn't come up with anything. So anyway, that's one thing. The other thing is, this was on the agenda once before, and I'd like to see if you can put it up there again. I think it would be a lot better for the people of Victorville if they could do their public comments before the meeting instead of after the meeting, because we've waited to hear, what, some hours so I could speak. And I could have said this in the very beginning, have it over with, and then listen to what you guys have to say. But I just think it'd be nice if we could have the public comment early in the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Norm Miller? And after Norm, it's John Almano. Norm Miller, is he here?
Oh, Norm just spoke.
Norm just spoke.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Clayton Moore.
John Almano?
Joanna, let me see the card. Joanna
Oh,
Allman?
no? Or is that? Oh.
Good evening. My name is Joanne Allman. There's a few things. Oh, you put the light on already. There's a few things I'm here. I'm not here very often.
Restart
My
the time,
husband is
Carolyn.
very ill. He has cancer. But my main reason was Bear Valley Road. From Stater Brothers to where the road is great to 395. We've got gouges in there. You could probably put a baby in a few of them. There's that are very long. If you have a motorcycle, you can get stuck in there. And my son does ride a motorcycle, but he gets in the turn lane because that's the only one that's nice. When it's raining, you have sand all the way across the street. So you have to get in the left turn lane and right to go down Bear Valley. There was a few other things I wanted to say, but boy, I'll tell you what, you guys, I give you credit. The only bad thing, we can't hear you back there. And I really do miss seeing the vote up there. Who voted what? I think the people in this room, when we're sitting here and can't hear you, at least when you vote, we could see it on the screen. That I miss. And I know that's Carol Lee's got to do that. One other thing was, can't think now. I waited too long. Oh, that was another thing. I think public comment should be put back on the front of the agenda. People come here from work. Maybe they have kids at home. I sat there. It's now 8 o'clock or a little after. From 5:30, I got here so I can get a seat until now. My husband's probably yelling his head off for dinner. So I just think really public comment belongs up in the front so people can come up and speak. I think that was it, but it sure has changed. The faces up there, there's a lot of gray hair. That wasn't gray when I left. Hi. No.
You may have contributed to some of that gray hair.
Yeah. No, but I think every one of us that makes us a little older but smarter in a lot of ways. But I think you guys do a great job, but it's hard to hear. Very hard. And I miss all of you. Anyway, that's it. Thank you. Now I can go home.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Dorothy Miller? After Dorothy will be Alex Gonzalez. I don't have a problem with that name.
Boy, that's a good one to follow, isn't it? I have a few problems that's going on. We need to do some road work. We're always redoing Old Town. It's been done, I know, 3 times, and it still looks as bad as it did. You hire all these people to come in and give you all the way to do it. It's not getting anywhere. Let's start taking care of the rest of the city. I mean, the mall, all that. The roads over there from 395 coming towards the mall is a disaster. And so is Sycamore. As a matter of fact, they're out here, they're sticking some more mud in the potholes instead of taking care of the whole thing. I mean, it's just getting completely out of control. Everything's down in Old Town, and people that live up in the upper part of the city gets nothing. And I really wanted to bring that out, and I think we should move the public comment up to the front so that you don't have to sit here all night waiting to speak your mind. And there's a lot of people don't even come anymore because they don't want to sit all night. So we need to start thinking about the people. You're representing the people. Take care of the people. Thank you.
Thank you, Dorothy. Alex Gonzalez. Maggie Martin.
Dorothy, don't leave yet. Just sit down, Dorothy. Sit down. Don't leave. Joanne, don't leave. We get to comment.
Good evening, Council. Whoa. I had a pre-thought out thing I was going to talk about, but I've kind of diverted. First of all, I would like to personally welcome our new police captain, Captain John Schuler. I think he might know that I'm a very big fan of Captain Lucia. Extreme admiration and respect for him. And he has become a good, what I would consider friend and confidant for my need. And I just want to welcome you, but also let you know you have very, very large boots to fill. I'm sure you can, but we will get to know each other, trust me. It'll just be a matter of time that I'll be come knocking on the door. So again, welcome, sir. The other thing that I saw here tonight that very distressed me, I mean, I am very distressed. This is supposed to be a professional business meeting, and I saw some very unprofessional conduct right here at this meeting. And I feel like, which is why I spoke out, I'm still feeling a little red, a little heated about it. But I don't think bickering, backbiting, snipping, whatever you want to call it, at one another from the dais speaks well of the people that are engaging in that. I would suggest they keep that kind of behavior amongst themselves and behind closed doors. And when you are new in any job, generally it's a good policy to listen more than speak, because we learn more that way about how the ropes of the job are done. And even though a person can be, when they're new, they can be the most educated person in the room with the absolute best solutions or ideas, but it's not going to come across well if it's not presented calmly and professionally. So I would suggest that maybe some polishing of their softer skills might be in order. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I believe Alex Gonzalez must have left. He's not coming forward.
Madam Mayor, at the beginning you mentioned both Clayton Moore and Norm Miller, and I know Clayton hasn't spoken. I don't know if he intended to or not. Okay, thank you.
Just real quickly, and then Joanne can leave and Dorothy can leave. We used to start our meeting at 7. Public comment started at 7:15 and frequently ran until 8 o'clock. So all the people who had business to deal with the city waited till 8, and they got their item up by 8:30 or 9. We moved the meeting to 6. Probably 9 out of 10 meetings in the last 4 years, public comment starts by 7 o'clock. Tonight was very unusual because we had all this other stuff. But we're normally getting public comment started about the same time as it used to be. That's my only point. Go home and say hello to Bob and go have dinner.
Madam Mayor, I want to make one comment. I have a very
You're excused, Dorothy.
I have a very soft voice, and when I'm reminded that the audience can't hear me, I stick the microphone in my mouth, and it makes a difference. But please, if anyone can't hear me or any member of the council, let somebody know, because we can get closer to the microphone, and it makes all the difference in the world. But when we're talking here, especially with a soft voice, I simply fade away, and I realize that, and I have to be reminded. My apologies, but just give me a high sign, anyone, anywhere, staff, whatever, and I'll correct it. And thank you for bringing it to my attention.
Okay, now we have reports from our city manager.
Staff has no additional comments at this time.
Very well. Reports from council members, and I'll start over here.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to welcome Police Chief Schuler as well. I'd like to let you know this is not typical. I've been on the council for 2 years, and I really enjoyed working with Sam, and I think it's a great relationship that we have there. Last year was terrible. We had fires and all kinds of mayhem going on. Family members stranded down the hill, and we're all affected the same in the community. So we appreciate everything that the fire department, Chief Muncie, and our police department does. And we have a great leadership group up here in the desert, and we're happy to have you aboard. Having said that, I would like to talk about our new council member. Over the last month or so, we've been called as a council corrupt. We've been called bought and paid for. We've been called many things. When Councilmember Gomez went to Rialto, she was called corrupt. And many people were confused and thought the rest of the city council supported whatever it is she was supporting and called us corrupt. We were told from the very beginning in the first meeting that she spends more time in the community than all 4 of us put together. That is inappropriate. This is a professional business meeting. There is decorum here, and I would never say some of the things you've said. Today, you reminded your colleagues that the planning commissioner position is a layperson requirement. You talked about other cities. Well, we are here for the business of the city of Victorville. But then you also said, well, that's where you can find your information. Now, I don't plan to be lectured and condescended by one of my colleagues. And so I'm cautioning you that this is not how we do things.
Thank you. Jim?
I have no comments, thank you.
I do have comments. So I heard on December 20th, Mayor Garcia, went ahead and said if there was any kind of changes that you wanted to the agenda, to please bring them to the attention. And a lot of people have spoken and said you want your public comments to be up towards the front of the agenda in the beginning. So I'm glad that you guys took that advice and have let us know that that's something that you consider. Another thing is when you can't hear, I don't know if there's volume to this or maybe import a few funds to make something that you guys can hear better. I don't know. I'm close enough, I think. Hopefully people in the back can hear me. And so thank you for bringing up that to the agenda. And whenever I go to any cities, I represent myself. I don't represent the council here. So for Mr. Negretti to say that I was representing him, I wasn't representing you or anybody else in this venue, is just myself. Everything that you hear, if you don't hear it straight from me, please ask me. Behind closed doors, I'm willing to share my opinion and probably put a lot of that fuel out, because I know there's a few things that were said from someone else that you heard, because I haven't spoken to you personally, and my intent is never to offend you. And if I ever offend you, please come to me. And like some people were saying up here, please let's not treat the dais. So I get it. I understand that. So that would be the same for my colleagues. So if you have an issue or something, bring it behind closed doors. That's the best way that we can operate. And it's really difficult to communicate with my council members because of the Brown Act. And so I'm starting to realize that. So we need to have a closed session, put on the agenda for the future so that we can have this discussion and all of us be there. I would ask that that be done so that we address it behind closed doors and we don't have to bring it out here, because we all have differences, and that's really clear.
Unfortunately, you probably can't have that type of discussion in a closed session setting, only because, again, it would be a Brown Act violation. Very limited reasons to go in a closed session.
So if there's another way to do that, I'm sure someone can come up with it, whether it's a blank copy of an email or something like that. That would be also something that can be to measure up what it is that we can do.
You can have discussions individually with, one different council member, so long as you're not trying to build any consensus, or that'd probably be the way to approach it. Or it could be a discussion at this, on the council dais at this level in public.
Okay, so then if that's how we're going to choose to do business, then so be it. We're going to do business open in the public and be transparent. And when you see our votes, the votes are going to come out as we feel. So I'm glad that we got that settled, and we know that we're going to be very transparent in front of the dais. The other thing that I wanted to also bring up with my remarks is I went to San Diego. Yes, I go to a lot of cities to get a lot of information. I just don't stay in my own city. I'm one person to learn from different divisions. I was in San Diego for 2 days straight, 48 hours. San Diego, this is the council remarks.
Again, you're speaking about issues that have nothing to do with our city.
Council member comments should be restricted to information that's within the subject matter of the city of Victorville. So
you don't want me to contextualize what I'm going to say? Is that what I hear?
If it relates to the business and the dealings of the city of Victorville, it needs to be put in that context, yes.
It does, and that is what I am doing. So thank you for letting me know that that's where I'm headed, because that's exactly where I'm headed. So like I was saying, I was in San Diego at the San Diego Housing Commission.
Madam Mayor,
I also
may I be
went to
excused?
Second Chance.
Be excused.
And I went to Father John's Village. And I realized that the homelessness that we have here in the city of Victorville, we could learn a lot about what is happening in other cities. So I was thinking that we can probably start implementing something in the city of Victorville to house our homeless, or to create a task force, something that we can do to help them out. I know a lot of people have been talking in that regard. So homelessness is a big issue, and I'd like to see if we can put that on the agenda in the future and see how we can help our homeless in the city of Victorville.
This meeting is adjourned.
Keith Metzler. Thank you.
They aren't all like this.